All right, then without further ado, let's move on to the third clip that we have from Thomas Frank. There's a total of 4. This third clip is about Trump's message. So what message did Trump use on the topic of NAFTA and trade and economics that helped him win and beat Hillary Clinton in the presidential election?
These are the forgotten men and women of our country, Trump said. People who work hard but no longer have a voice. Then he tried to reverse the sort of traditional liberal criticism of the right as being pawns of the billionaires, right? The Koch brothers and all that sort of thing. This is what Trump said. Big business, elite media, and major donors are lining up behind the campaign of my opponent because they know she will keep our rigged system in place. Rigged system. He stole that, of course, from the speaker tonight, Elizabeth Warren. That was her phrase. You see this? He's swiping and swiping. Trump goes on. They're throwing money at her, meaning Hillary, because they have total control over every single thing she does. She is their puppet and they pull the strings. When Trump said those things in Cleveland to that audience watching on TV, when Trump said those things, the man connected emotionally. And we have to understand that. He was right when he said that the system is rigged. It is, folks. He's right when he pointed out that huge parts of this country have been deindustrialized, and that is a terrible thing. What drives me absolutely crazy, what made me crazy the day I heard that speech, and what has driven me crazy every day since then, is that those are things that my side used to say. Those are the things that we used to be about.
All right, I think that was a really good point by Frank, in my opinion. When you look at it, Clinton's support of NAFTA and her, basically her campaign being funded by a lot of big industries was a major talking point for Trump. And it's supposed to be the other way around, right? The left is supposed to be, like, actually, ideologically, the left isn't supposed to be taking money from any corporations. Obviously, we don't see that happening. But, right. I mean, and that's, you know, a sign of how far the system has gone. Actually, on the political compass I mentioned earlier, Trump is further economically left just by a smidge than Clinton. So Clinton is actually fiscally more conservative in at least certain aspects, which is crazy. And I mean, if you look at it, here's a statement from the Koch brothers, who always endorse Republicans. Koch brothers in 2016 did not give a single dollar to Donald Trump, and they said this about Clinton. Well, we would have to believe her actions will be quite different from her rhetoric. Let's put it that way. And we actually know that's true because part of the DNC leaks, or Clinton email leaks, one of the 2 leaks, showed that Clinton said, I believe in a speech to Goldman Sachs, but to some industry executives, that she has, quote unquote, public and private positions on different issues. In essence, she said, yeah, I mean, I have my stated positions I put on my website that'll appeal to the American people, and then they have the things that I'll really end up doing. Yeah. Right? I mean, so the Koch brothers were right when they said that. So I think, like, and you look at that, that's what Trump talked about the most. I mean, Hillary Clinton being bought off by different industries. And that was what connected. I mean, it is true that people look at personality and authenticity and things like that, and not so much policy. But this is both policy and, like, honesty. Like, when people see Clinton as this, they don't necessarily make the connection like, well, she takes money from oil, therefore she will deregulate the climate. Actually, a lot of them do make that assumption. But a lot of them just look at it and say, oh my God, she's not being honest. I mean, it doesn't take a policy expert to understand that she's not being honest in those cases. Regardless of how you make the logical connections of the policies, this general feeling that Hillary Clinton was dishonest, she wasn't genuine to the American people, was a major reason that she lost. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that also the fact that Trump was brutally honest in some cases, right. It was a lot of rhetoric, but people could view it as very brutally honest. Mm-hmm. And that kind of brings up a question I wanted to ask you guys, actually. So there's a lot of talk about how Obama was supposed to be the beacon of change when entering office, and he kind of majorly shifted away with that, especially with things like the signing of TARP.
Right.
So you have some people believing that now Donald Trump is the beacon of change. Some people. Of course, some people. But how do you think that he will fare, and how maybe those people's opinions will shift with the stuff he's been doing and the stuff he is planning on doing?
Well, if you look at his popularity, he's kind of been whittled down to he's only popular amongst his base. And really time will tell if his base continues supporting him, and that's around like the 36, 37% of Americans supporting him. And I think that will depend on whether he's able to make any symbolic or actual progress towards some of his major campaign goals in the next 4 years, like the wall, things like that.
So you don't think it's necessarily economically based? It's more...
I think it's more about the symbol of being America first. If he's seen in any way to like move away from that, and then I think some of his base may start to leave him in larger numbers than they have been.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Again, as I mentioned, when people say that voters really care about this image of somebody as opposed to like an in-depth policy analysis, they're right, but they're only somewhat right. It doesn't get the whole picture. I think that their image of someone is largely shaped by their policy analysis. I mean, it might be a basic policy analysis, but if somebody says, for example, a reason that single payer is so popular, somebody says, hey, you know what, people are going into debt because they can't afford healthcare, people can't afford their healthcare. What if healthcare didn't cost you anything? I mean, even you don't have to be a policy expert to understand that. So I think although Trump voters and just the American populace in general may think image first, that image is shaped by policy. So people do care about Trump's policies. And 538 has done the analysis of it. That's a website run by Nate Silver. They did the analysis and they said the bottom for Trump's support, like the lowest he can go, is about 20%. And I do think that if Trump fails to pass more stuff that can be seen as populist, it will go near and near, as you said, it's about 36, 37% right now. I think the base is 20%, and I mean, it really depends on if he caters more to the establishment, as he's been doing completely. He promised to be interventionist, or he promised to be non-interventionist. He's turned out to be completely interventionist. You know, he promised to be populist, and instead he's been giving tax break. His new tax plan gives a huge tax break to the rich, much more than it does to the poor. In fact, certain poor people have to pay more in taxes. I think the way that Trump can rebound his popularity is to appeal to those populist sentiments that he continued to espouse on the campaign trail. If he signs a renegotiation of NAFTA that's actually more protectionist, his actual renegotiation plan of NAFTA was pretty much like the TPP, which was exactly what he was railing against. So who knows about that? So, but if he actually goes, he does more protectionism. If he does more, if he does an infrastructure deal, if he does, populist things he was talking about, maybe even like a populist healthcare plan. That's definitely not been proposed, but something like that. I think. Yeah, if he continues with populism, that may be a way for him to at least keep his numbers from declining.
Yeah, very good.
Any other points?
Not a ton. In the video, Frank talks about how Trump railed Clinton for taking money from corporations, and I think if you follow kind of back to the root problem of when the Democratic Party started accepting money from corporate interests, you get back to one of like the major problems in American politics today, which is Citizens United. When corporations are allowed to give completely unlimited money to candidates on the right, this puts the left at such a disadvantage that they have to start taking money from industries that agree with them, which then undermines their credibility. So I think if you're looking for the root problem of a lot of the problems he's pointing out, then it does come back to Citizens United in some way.